So it seems like the feels train is just gonna keep on rolling with this one, and I'm perfectly okay with that. So hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to one of our weekly To Your Eternity discussion videos. Today we're here to talk all about episode 2, A Rambunctious Girl. But before we get into the video proper, quick reminder if you haven't done so yet, to hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, set notifications to all, let all of AniTube know that you're here, and without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into it. I want to start by talking about the orb, or the boy, I guess. I believe I called him the boy last week. Although I didn't, because I called him the dog's name, which I have now forgotten. Joan. Joan? Yeah, I believe I called him Joan the whole time. But Joan actually is not who that is. That's the orb. Joan died, and so did the boy. So the orb, we learn a little bit more about him this week. This week really felt like at the beginning of it, all I could hear in my head was just into the unknown. I probably made that the thumbnail, but yeah, that's the vibe it gave me. It was just like we're going into the unknown. You know, at this point we've traveled farther than the boy would have ever seen at this point, because there's no more snow. He actually they walked all the way through the snow into like a wooded forest area. And what I think is interesting too is I'm pretty sure we see the beast, or like the god that these people worship. I'm fairly certain we see it, because it looks like it straight up kills the orb at one point. But don't worry, as apparently the orb has died a number of times, still sort of unclear on the whole human thing and how it really works. So they're struggling to figure it out, and they've apparently died a good number of times. I believe they said it was like 6 or something. Only for the orb to then learn how to restore itself and heal fairly quickly. It initially took 5 days for the orb to heal itself completely, and now it's slowly starting to learn how to do it quicker and quicker. It can do it now within like a 12-hour span. It can very quickly heal itself, which I think is really cool. I appreciate too that like when we see it healing, it also like puts like its clothes back together as well, because it's like healing into the boy, you know, like so it actually heals up in a way that like the bandage from the boy's leg heals like that. Really interesting stuff. And God, that healing transformation, that shot where we see the orb healing, that is some beautiful stuff. I recorded this before checking Sakugaboru, and I feel like a fool, because I would love to shout out whoever worked on that scene, whether it was one person or a team. Like that shot where he's like you see the orb, like the body of the boy like spinning, and it's like trying to heal itself in like a circle, and it's like it's cool. March says it looks like when you step on a bug, but the bug actually heals and like moves away. That's what March is like. Whoa, you remind me of a bug. And I was like, okay, that's not what I thought, but I can understand how a kid would think that. But yeah, that shot is so sick, and it shows like just the scope of this character and how quickly they're like learning how to heal, and like how intense that healing factor is. Because when we see the orb again, they are messed up from whatever it is that bear did to them. So yeah, that whole scene was just insane. And it's interesting too, we see that I bring up March and the orb, because they actually have like a really fun dynamic. We see like that the orb is like March sort of follows the orb first, but eventually the orb figures out that March knows how to climb trees and get fruit. So the orb just kind of like starts following March around, and sort of acts like a lost puppy. And March starts to sort of like take care of the orb, and we see at one point as it's eating, the orb's eyes shift from yellow to pink. Now, not only did this make me think of the OP, Pink Blood, by friggin' Utada Hikaru, I'm never gonna get over that, but we see the eyes change from yellow to pink. And at first I was trying to think like color-wise what that means, but I think we need to look at it less from a color design standpoint and more of a character design standpoint. The eyes changing from yellow to pink is more so to indicate the shift from a more bestial nature to a more human one. The orb is sort of letting their guard down around March, right? We see them sort of like looking at the world through the eyes of the wolf, but that's more so because that's the eyes it's comfortable with, because the wolf, you know, was like, he's a wolf, he's badass and scary, right? but when he's able to trust something or someone, maybe that's when they shift to pink to show that it's sort of like the inner, more childlike human heart on the inside of the orb, or that the orb is maybe starting to form. But yeah, I just thought that was super cool. I wanted to talk a little bit about the orb at the beginning of the video. However, the big character that I really want to talk about, the character who kind of stole the show this week, March. March was friggin' great. I think a lot of people typically... there's a joke here on the channel that, like, I don't read is one, and then the other one is I hate kids. And that's kind of true, and it's kind of not. I don't typically like kid characters in anime, only because I find them usually really annoying. However, March was just an immediate, like, protect this one, and so, of course, bad things happen to March. But genuinely just, like, a really fun personality. Like the character just immediately is charming. You just want good things for March. She just felt like a genuinely nice kid, you know, like, and obviously, like, do I want kids of my own? No, I don't really like kids. I do find kids to be kind of annoying in real life, and in anime, they're ungodly annoying. But I obviously don't want anything bad to happen to them. They're kids. They're innocent, right? Like, kids don't know anything. They're just dumb kids. And March just seems like a nice, dumb kid, you know? Like, March, you just want good things to happen for. And I can kind of relate to March, where it's like, I want to be a grown-up. Like, because when I was a kid, I was the kid who wanted to be a grown-up. Like, I hated being a kid. So it's like, I don't want to be a kid, I want to be a grown-up. So I kind of related to March. I'm like, hell yeah. Also, March comes from a village of sort of like an indigenous culture. And as an indigenous dude myself, I was like, hell to the yeah, that's awesome. Like, so I was like, hell yeah, this is fun. I'm enjoying this. And March's character design even sort of strikes as a sort of indigenous vibe with the long black hair, the sort of beige outfit that all the other villagers wear, like beige with this like red stripe going down the one side. Very, very cool. I think the design is super sick. And she just like, I don't know, the design makes the character even funnier, because like March is very much like, you know, she's a dumb kid, right? She's not loud and obnoxious, but she is like, I want to be an adult. Why can't I be a grown-up? I want to be a grown-up. I want to be a mom, right? I'd be a great mom. Like just like going off, you know, being a kid and saying like, I'd do this, I do that, I'd be great, right? And it's like, yeah, you would be, March, but you're being a little ridiculous. Let's calm down a bit, as the dad says, like, let's behave a bit. And I love how the mom's like, well, you have to behave, and then you got to sleep 3,000 sleeps. Then you can be a grown-up. And I was like, dang, that's a lot of sleeps. But it was funny to me how the character, well, not funny, but I thought it was really clever how the character, when we initially see her, is wearing this sort of face paint, right? And we established that the face paint is something that the children of the village have, where like the children of the village will wear this face paint until they are old enough where they then get rid of the face paint and become full-fledged adults. Now, this is March's initial look. She keeps the sort of face paint for a while until we eventually see her sort of fall into this lake and the face paint smudges. So instead of just leaving it, she just decides to wash it all off. And that's where she eventually meets the orb. But in terms of character design, while I don't have a lot to say about the design, because March's design complements the character, it's kind of a goofy design for a goofy character, but the biggest thing for me is the symbolism of the initial design versus like washing the face paint off, because we see that this is March being thrust into a situation where she can't stay a little kid. Now she kind of has to become an adult to survive the situation she's finding herself in, and she wants to be a mom. Throughout the episode, you see her saying to her mom, like, I want to be a mom, I'd be good at it. Now the orb treats her like a mom, right? Like following her around like a lost puppy, to the point where March literally finishes the episode by saying, you know I'm not your mom, right? And it's like this goofy moment, but it's genuinely handled very well. And there's real conflict to March as a character. Like, she doesn't want to die. She wants to grow up to become an adult. But she also knows that if she doesn't die, if she isn't the one who gets sacrificed, then her friends, or her only other friend in the village who's her age, she'll get sacrificed. And if she runs away, then her kid's sister is going to get sacrificed. So it's this like troublesome situation of like, what do I do? What is right for me to do? She has a nightmare about it. Like, you really feel for March as a character. I really like this character. And yeah, March can go into the club where the anime kid characters who don't annoy the crap out of me. That's where March can go. But that's not the only character designs that I want to talk about. I have a little bit less to say about these two, but I do want to talk about Perona and Hyusei. But I'm going to start with Perona. Perona we see to be sort of this like character who's quite skilled with a bow. Like, when we initially see her, she's rocking the bow. When she goes to like meet up with March, and we see immediately that she's like very protective of March. So my initial thought was like, okay, so she's gonna be this like badass archer, but no, turns out she's like really bad at it, which is honestly kind of refreshing that it's like there's this badass archer character. It's like, no, but they're like bad at being an archer. That's cool. I like that. Maybe we'll actually get to hang out with these characters for a bit and like see Perona actually like get really good with the bow. I'd be down for that. But we end up sort of, or rather, we see that the other villagers, they actually like back Perona up. They're like, yeah, okay, you're not great at it now. The bow's a little bit heavy. It's gonna take some time to adjust to the weight, but you'll get there. I like that. That's wholesome, right? The dude's being like, you got this. Or I'm like, that's wholesome. The dude's not being like, oh, a girl couldn't do that. It's like, no. That's not how this shit would fly. Like, anybody wants to be a hunter or a bowman, hell yeah, come in. Like, you want to learn how to be an archer, let's go. Like, gender is irregardless here. Like, that shit does not matter. I appreciated that. I thought that was cool. And we see that Perona is very protective of March, even trying to flee with her at one point. And another thing about March's design that I forgot to mention is that Perona gives her stuffed animals all the time, right? We see Perona like deliver the stuffed animal that will become kind of part of March's character, and it's this little crab thing. And it shows how much March wants to be a mom, right? So Perona is part of that. Like, Perona is the one who makes the stuffed animals. She even plays house with March because March just wants to be an adult. She wants to be a mom, right? But Perona is sort of like allowing her to live in this kind of like goofy fantasy where she's like the mom to all these stuffed animals. She's like a good older sister. Like, they constantly call her, or March constantly calls her Nene, like sister, all the time. Or sissy, I think they call her, like big sis, right? They're constantly referring to her as a sister. And when it comes to her design itself, she's rocking this like long dark purple hair that's sort of like in a she kind of puts it in a ponytail. It kind of goes over her shoulder. And then she's got these brown eyes, and then just like March, she has the same sort of village outfit. And when it comes to the eyes, I think that's like the biggest indicator of who Perona is, since they're brown, right? Like, the brown eyes, if the eyes are the window to the soul, brown is definitely like dependable, right? So I liked that, like, the color brown is like kind of linked to this character, as well as purple. I think the purple could indicate a wisdom to the character. We know that purple usually indicates like mystery and royalty and stuff like that, right? But obviously Perona is not royalty, and there's not much of a mystery with this character. I feel like this is more of a what you see is what you get type of character. But along with those two elements comes the element of wisdom. Purple is a wise color, and that comes from the fact that, you know, royals know royals and mysteries, secrets that must never be told, you know, like knowledge that must never be shared, wisdom. So I think maybe it could indicate that Perona is wise enough to know that this is stupid and March doesn't have to die for some nonsense, right? So that could be it. But yeah, I like Perona. I'm hoping she doesn't die. Like, we get to a point where like she almost tries to sacrifice herself for March. She doesn't die or anything, but she does get tied up for it. I hope she doesn't die. I'd be really bummed if she did. But the other character that I want to talk about briefly is Hyusei. Hyusei is interesting because it's not like she's inherently evil. It's more like she's sort of misguided. She's trying to she's trying to uphold these traditions without really thinking about like why they're doing it. Like, she's just like, we have to, because we have to appease this god, this like deity, who I assume is the bear that kills the orb earlier on in the episode. But it's not like she's like evil for it. It's just that's what her people have always done, so that's what she's doing, right? And she doesn't seem mean. Like, when she, at least not to me, you guys let me know how you felt, but like it didn't seem mean. It seemed more like, well, this is what we do. right? Like, she tells March, like, you're gonna have to die. Like, and then, like, what if I run away? Well, then we'll take the other one. Well, what if she runs away? Well, then we'll take the one that can't run, right? Like, I'm sorry, this is happening. Like, this is gonna have to happen. It's still bad. It's an evil act, but I don't think she herself is inherently evil. You know what I'm saying? But it does present a really interesting character, even if maybe she seems like a bit misguided in what she's doing. As for the design itself, it's actually kind of sick. She has this sort of like arm and leg armor where it's like covering her forearms. Not even, like covering her whole arm essentially. And then we see sort of like, again, the same sort of armor on the legs, and then padded just fabric around the legs and arms around the armor. So clearly this is a character who was like built for combat. It's why she's able to catch Perona so quickly. But she's basically made for combat. We see that plus this like long bow staff, right? But it's not just that. Like, that alone would have indicated like strong warrior, right? But even her outfit of like underneath that, so we see this sort of like black tank top with black shorts and this sort of like red belt that's holding it all together. And to me, that mixed with the bow staff tells me that Hyusei is probably like a character who's going to be able to do like a lot of acrobatic stuff. Like the fact that the outfit is sort of like loose fitting but not constricting, like the fact that, or like, yeah, it's not constricting and it's not getting in the way either. It's not like baggy clothes where you'd have to throw it off if you really want to be effective and flip around. It's sort of like, I can't explain it other than like acrobatic attire. So it's like, it's clothes that I could see an acrobat wearing in order to like do flips and stuff. And if you're going to use a bow staff, you're probably going to need to throw in some flips and spins in with your twirling, right? Like in with twirling the bow staff and like thrusting with the bow staff. So you probably want to be quick on your feet, and it makes sense, right? So on top of that too, if you have the bow staff, it's probably not likely that they're going to get to your chest, so you'd want to mainly protect your arms and your legs. So I thought that the design was super sick, and I think it makes her all the more intimidating. And I'm really kind of curious to see what's going to happen with these characters, and especially their connection with the orb. Like, we know that the other dudes who show up, who have this sort of like Inosuke mask, but without the boar face, it's just like the fur. They sort of run up and they're like, "There's a monster out there! Don't go out there, Hyusei!" And she's like, "Monster?" And they seem sort of confused by that. So this makes me wonder. Like, we know that there is magic in this world, but does like the village know that there's like actual crazy magic that like the orb can use, right? Like, well, maybe not magic, but there's some sort of like fantasy element going on here. And are they aware of that? Like, are there other monsters out there? Does the bear count as a monster? Because the bear looked insane. I don't super know, but I am very excited to see what Hyusei thinks of the orb, or what or whether or not like the bear itself is some kind of monster, or what we're gonna find out. But I want to know more. I am very much sold on this show already. It's only episode 2. But with that said, everybody, that is going to wrap up today's video here, so I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, don't forget to boop that up snoot, share if you care, leave a comment down below, and of course, make sure that you hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, set notifications to all, let all of AniTube know that you're here. And of course, before we go, as always, I want to give a big thank you to the good folks in the T Squadron. Look at these beautiful people. Look at all these beautiful names, and hey, if you'd like to join these beautiful people, there are 2 ways to do so. First is by hitting that join button right beside the sub button. That gets you a badge next to your name, some emotes to spam in the comments, and your name scrolling past the screen here. Or to get your name scrolling past the screen for just a single $1, you can go ahead and check out that Patreon link in the description. Either way, it is super appreciated. So once again, a big thank you to the good folks in the T Squadron. That is it for me. That was one hell of an episode, and I gotta know what's going on with March. I gotta make sure that my girl's okay. But until next time, bye!